The Elephantine Papyri consist of 175 documents from the Egyptian border fortresses of Elephantine and Syene, which yielded hundreds of papyri in hieratic, Demotic, Aramaic, Greek, Latin and Coptic, spanning a period of 2,000 years. The documents include letters and legal contracts from family and other archives, and are thus an invaluable source of knowledge for scholars of varied disciplines such as epistolography, law, society, religion, language and onomastics. They are a collection of ancient Jewish manuscripts dating from the 5th century BC. They come from a Jewish community at Elephantine, then called Yeb, the island in the Nile at the border of Nubia, which was probably founded as a military installation in about 650 BC during Manasseh's reign to assist Pharaoh Psammeticus I in his Nubian campaign. The dry soil of Upper Egypt preserved documents from the Egyptian border fortresses of Elephantine and Syene. Hundreds of these Elephantine papyri, written in hieratic and Demotic Egyptian, Aramaic, Greek, Latin and Coptic, span a period of 1,000 years. Legal documents and a cache of letters survive, turned up on the local grey market of antiquities starting in the late 19th century, and were scattered into several Western collections. Though some fragments on papyrus are much older, the largest number of papyri are written in Aramaic, the lingua franca of the Persian Empire, and documents the Jewish community among soldiers stationed at Elephantine under Persian rule, 495–399 BCE. The Elephantine documents include letters and legal contracts from family and other archives, divorce documents, the manumission of slaves, and other business, and are a valuable source of knowledge about law, society, religion, language and onomastics, the sometimes surprisingly revealing study of names. The Passover letter of 419 BCE, which gives detailed instructions for properly keeping the Passover, is in the Egyptian Museum of Berlin. Further Elephantine papyri are at the Brooklyn Museum. The discovery of the Brooklyn Papyri is a remarkable story itself. The documents were first acquired in 1893 by New York journalist Charles Edwin Wilbur. After lying in a warehouse for more than 50 years, the papyri were shipped to the Egyptian department of the Brooklyn Museum. It was at this time that scholars finally realized that Wilbur had acquired the first Elephantine papyri. Jewish temple at Elephantine. The Jews had their own temple to Yahweh, evincing polytheistic beliefs, which functioned alongside that of Canaan. Excavation work done in 1967 revealed the remains of the Jewish colony centered on a small temple. The Petition to Bagoas is a letter written in 407 BCE to Bagoas, the Persian governor of Judea, appealing for assistance in rebuilding the Jewish temple in Elephantine, which had recently been badly damaged by an anti-Semitic rampage on the part of a segment of the Elephantine community. In the course of this appeal, the Jewish inhabitants of Elephantine speak of the antiquity of the damaged temple. Now our forefathers built this temple in the fortress of Elephantine back in the days of the Kingdom of Egypt, and when Cambyses came to Egypt he found it built. They knocked down all the temples of the gods of Egypt, but no one did any damage to this temple. The community also appealed for aid to Sanballat I, a Samaritan potentate, and his sons Delaiah and Shelemiah, as well as Yohanan ben Eliashib. Both Sanballat and Yohanan are mentioned in the Book of Nehemiah 2:19, 12:23. There was a response of both governors which gave the permission to rebuild the temple, written in the form of a memorandum. One memorandum of what Bagoi and Delaiah said to me, saying, Memorandum, you may say in Egypt, 8 to build it on its site as it was formerly. By the middle of the 4th century BCE, the temple at Elephantine had ceased to function. There is evidence from excavations that the rebuilding and enlargement of the Khnum temple under Nectanebo II took the place of the former temple of Yhwh. In 2004, the Brooklyn Museum of Art created a display entitled Jewish Life in Ancient Egypt, a family archive from the Nile Valley, which featured the interfaith couple of Ananiah, an official at the Temple of Yahweh, and his wife, Tamat, who was previously an Egyptian slave owned by a Jewish master, Meshullam. Some related exhibition didactics of 2002 included comments about significant structural similarities between Judaism and the ancient Egyptian religion and how they easily coexisted and blended at Elephantine and at Yahoo. The papyri suggest that, even in exile and beyond, the veneration of a female deity endured. The texts were written by a group of Jews living at Elephantine near the Nubian border, whose religion has been described as nearly identical to Iron Age II Judaite religion. The papyri describe the Jews as worshipping Anat-Yahu. Anat-Yahu is described as either the wife of Yahweh or as a hypostatized aspect of Yahweh. The family archive of Ananiah and Tamat. The 8 papyri contained at the Brooklyn Museum concern one particular Jewish family, providing specific information about the daily lives of a man called Ananiah, a Jewish temple official, his wife, Tamat, an Egyptian slave, and their children. Over the course of 47 years, Egyptian farmers discovered the archive of Ananiah and Tamat on Elephantine Island in 1893, while digging for fertilizer in the remains of ancient mud brick houses. They found at least 8 papyrus rolls which were purchased by Charles Edwin Wilbur. He was the first person to find Aramaic papyri. The papyri have been grouped here by topic, such as marriage contract, real estate transaction, or loan agreement. Marriage document. Ancient marriage documents generally formalized already existing relationships. In this case, Ananiah and Tamat already had a young son when the document was drawn up. Because Tamat was a slave when she married Ananiah, the contract has special conditions. Usually, it was the groom and his father-in-law who made Jewish marriage agreements, but Ananiah made this contract with Tamat's master, Meshullam, who legally was her father. In addition, special provision was made to free the couple's son, also a slave to Meshullam. Perhaps Ananiah consented to the small dowry of either 7 or 15 shekels in order to obtain his son's freedom. Future children, however, would still be born slaves. In contrast to Jewish documents like this one, contemporaneous Egyptian marriage documents were negotiated between a husband and wife. Deed of emancipation. Nearly 22 years after her marriage to Ananiah, Tamat's master released her and her daughter, Yehoshua, from slavery. It was rare for a slave to be freed, and though a slave could marry a free person, their children usually belonged to the master. As an institution, slavery in Egypt at that time differed in notable ways from the practice in some other cultures. Egyptian slaves retained control over personal property, had professions, and were entitled to compensation. During the Persian period in Egypt, it was not uncommon to sell children, or even oneself, into slavery to pay debts. Real estate documents. Bagazist and Ubil sell a house to Ananiah. This document to the left describes a property purchased by Ananiah 12 years after his marriage, from a Persian soldier named Bagazist and his wife, Ubil. The property, in a town on Elephantine Island, named for the god Khnum, was located across the street from the Temple of Yahweh and adjacent to the Persian family of Ubil's father. As such proximity might suggest the Egyptians, Jews, and Persians in Elephantine all lived among one another. The renovation of the house and its gradual transfers to family members are the central concerns of the next several documents in Ananiah's family archive. Ananiah gives Tamat part of the house 3 years after purchasing the house from Bagazist and Ubil. Ananiah transferred ownership of an apartment within the now renovated house to his wife, Tamat. Although Tamat thereafter owned the apartment, Ananiah required that at her death it pass to their children, Palti and Yehoshua. As with all property transfers within a family, this gift was described as made in love. Image of document in gallery. Ananiah gives Yehoshua part of the house drawn up 30 years after the preceding papyrus. This document is one of several that gradually transferred ownership of Ananiah and Tamit's house to their daughter, Yehoshua, as payment on her dowry. The legal descriptions of the house preserve the names of Ananiah's neighbors. They included an Egyptian who held the post of gardener of the Egyptian god Khnum. On the other side, 2 Persian boatmen. Image of document in gallery. Ananiah gives Yehoshua another part of the house for his daughter Yehoshua's dowry. Ananiah had transferred to her partial ownership of the house he shared with Tamit. After making more repairs to the building, Ananiah transferred a further section of the house, described in this document, to the dowry. Image of document in gallery. Ananiah and Tamit sell the house to their son-in-law. This papyrus records the sale of the remaining portion of Ananiah and Tamit's house to Yehoshua's husband, possibly because the clients were dissatisfied with something the scribe had written. At one point the text of the document breaks off and then starts over again, repeating what has gone on before with some additions. The boundary description included here refers to the Temple of Yahweh in Elephantine, now rebuilt 8 years after its destruction in 410 BCE during a civil war conflict that arose out of a land dispute. Image of document in gallery below. Loan agreement. Sometime in December 402 BCE, Ananiah son of Haggai borrowed 2 monthly rations of grain from Pachnam son of Besser, an Aramean with an Egyptian name. This receipt would have been held by Pachnam and returned to Ananiah son of Haggai when he repaid the loan. No interest is charged, but there is a penalty for failing to repay the loan by the agreed date. The receipt demonstrates that friendly business relations continued between Egyptians and Jews in Elephantine after the expulsion of the Persians by the kings of dynasty the 18th. Image of document is in gallery below. Gallery. Freedom for Tamit and Yehoshua, June 12, 427 BCE, Brooklyn Museum. Ananiah gives Tamit part of the house, October 30, 434 BCE, Brooklyn Museum. Ananiah gives Yehoshua part of the house, November 26, 404 BCE, Brooklyn Museum. Ananiah gives Yehoshua another part of the house, March 10, 402 BCE. Brooklyn Museum. House sale, December 12, 402 BCE, Brooklyn Museum. Receipt for a grain loan, December 402 BCE, Brooklyn Museum.